I said, give me that. Rock the rhythm, come on. Rock the rhythm, come on. I said, give me that. Rock the rhythm, come on. Rock the rhythm, come on. Rock the rhythm, come on.
Vieni con me, ti porterò lontano perché la vita è così bella, lo sai, e vedrai che troverò la strada per stare insieme a te.
This is the last program of the EyeMalta project. In it, we thought of bringing together the photographers in order that we are able to see what makes each one tick, what excites one and not the other, what different perspectives they have of the same thing. In a nutshell, this program will bring together all the elements that made the EyeMalta experience a rewarding one. We had the opportunity to go on stage and round Claire Balucci during her performance.
Rehearsal.
During her rehearsal. Claire Balucci is an organist, and there were different elements on stage. There was the choir, some soloists, there was the organist and the instrument.
As you said, it was a rehearsal. It was mainly just an exercise for ourselves. I usually go to a rehearsal when it's a big performance before, for the reason to know my angles, to know the type of lighting that's going to be used, to know where the people are going to be positioned, to know the program, what's happening, so that I'm anticipating, I'm already in the right position if there's something happening.
For a highlight.
Exactly. So that's my main reason for going to rehearsal, and I recommend it very much, because in these things, the more prepared you are and the more you know what's happening, the better. In this case, we were just taking some pictures here and there, and I tried to get out something, I mean, different angles. Again, I went close into the choir. I've gone close into her hands because, you know, to get the relationship between the organist's hands, the performer's hands, and the actual instrument. You go and check general lighting shots and general shots of the audience, particularly in the actual concert. Because these are, you know, these are going to be needed. You also have to keep in mind that the performer will definitely need PR shots, promotion shots of the. So you have to think, listen, what's good? What will stop people when they see the picture in the newspaper?
What will look
good? What will look at it best? So you have to also anticipate this thing. If there are people, I mean, if there are presentations, you cover those, which are very important, especially, you know, the curtain call at the end, the big groups coming out, those you have to cover also. Those are very important, and they look always good when published. So you have to keep in mind a lot of these things. Sometimes you go to performances that you can't even use flash, not performances. So you have to think to, you know, use a high speed on your camera so that you can capture what's happening without actually using flash. Yeah. I tend to try and avoid using flash quite a lot, because during performances, I mean indoors, because usually it kills the atmosphere a bit, you know, and it gives it a bit of unnatural bright lights. Whereas if you try and keep the actual lighting of the studio set, especially if the studio, the stage set or the theater set is well lit, usually looks much nicer without adding flash to it.
Do you usually, what would be your preference? A staged and stage performance, a performer is waiting for your shot, or impromptu shots during a performance?
My main preference, my personal preference is a stage shot. I'm really one who likes to anticipate the picture, who likes to get detail, who likes to prepare everything. I can picture the final image in my mind, so I can prepare for that. During a live performance, you have to go about with what is happening there. You have very little control over the situation. It's more anticipation. So from that side, I prefer staged pictures, because you can be much more creative. In staged and in performances which are live, you have to take what there is. So you're a bit tied, a bit down.
Yeah. You take photos of a performance in a theater. But then there are bands that play in a wine bar. We went to the Labyrinth, for example. There was a jazz night. The venue was smaller.
You can't create, and even the lighting wasn't more or less, you know, it's not stage lighting, definitely. Yeah. But then, I think that if you're a creative photographer, you can still get some good pictures, again, by planning, then you have, in these small places, you can more or less counter-react with the performers, because it's more of a relaxed atmosphere. It's not like telling somebody who's on stage, you can't tell him, listen, look here, but in these cases, you can. I mean, you go up to them, a lot of them, I know them personally, so they're all going to cooperate with you. So if you want to turn a bit of a person a bit sideways, or tell him, listen, do that type of action, or turn towards the lighting, they'll be cooperating. So again, it's up to you to try and make the best of the actual situation, whatever place you're shooting, whoever you're shooting. What I don't like, especially certain photographers who do not have experience, is they just go there and shoot and get what is happening. Yeah. If you can manipulate, if you can add to it, if you can bend things, you do it.
For example, there's one where you made very clever use of the red and the blue, because there happens to be that kind of lighting.
So that kind of colors there.
Was that the lighting that there was?
That there was actually in place. What I did to get it more out, I told the performers more or less to stay steady as much as possible. They don't move, or the people, they don't move, and then took a long time exposure, so that the actual lighting, no flash, so that the actual lighting that there was, the ambience, the artificial lighting, registered onto the image. That's why you get those red and blue hues that are quite attractive in that picture, and it makes, I mean, a picture which is quite strange. At the same time, when a picture is strange, people are going to look at it. When you have
maybe unique.
Exactly. When you have an unusual viewpoint, for example, you search for it.
Yes.
And that's what makes an image better than another one. It's stopping power, we call it.
Creativity.
Exactly, and creativity.
Joe, what would you consider to be your pet subject in photography?
Well, there are a lot of subjects which I like to cover every now and then just for a change, but I would consider that the performing arts would be on top of my list. When I say performing arts, I mean stage, dance, theater, music. Particularly, I love jazz, and I have been photographing the jazz festival since the first edition, as we can see on the screen there, of the festival.
What part of jazz really fascinates you?
Well, actually, it's the performance itself. I mean, you know, these people are highly motivated. As they say, they never play the same thing twice in the same manner. Their communication with the audience, you know, their total commitment to the instrument while they're playing. And you know, I love creating these black spaces around the musician to isolate, you know, what is really happening there in the center of the picture.
So in your collection, you got us black and white pictures and jazz. Do you see a relationship between the two?
Yes, definitely. I mean, jazz is all about abstraction of notes and compression of musical tones. And you know, I think monochrome lends itself very much strongly to this type of photography. As you can see, I mean, the black spaces have an important part of the picture as the main subject itself, you know what I mean?
And why is that?
Because that helps you to concentrate really on, there's a strong contrast between what is happening here and this blank space. And that is jazz, you know, there you have, even musically, I'm not a musician, but you know, I mean, there's a compression of notes, an abstraction of tone, you know, I mean, it's always improvisation. So that's what I try to convey in my pictures.
Dance. Do you relate to any particular kind of performance, to dance, to theatre, to the stage?
Well, I would say I would prefer contemporary dance because it provides the photographer with a range of happenings on stage. And contrary to what we said about jazz using monochrome, most of the times because of the light on the stage and the atmosphere that creates, you know, I mean, I would prefer to go for color in this case.
Some of the pictures here of this performance, for example, are silhouettes. Mm-hmm. Was the performance really?
It was
like
intended
that?
to be like that. Yes.
Okay.
That's why they were backlit, and so they get these lovely, you know, shapes of the hands and.
Brian, what would you say your pet subject in photography would be?
Probably it is actually fashion.
When you say fashion, is it fashion on the catwalk, fashion in studio, fashion on site? What would be your baby subject?
Probably fashion in studio or sometimes on location, but not on the catwalk.
Not on the catwalk. Why?
I find it more interesting. There's more to do when you're in a studio, because obviously on a catwalk it's more restricted to the model is walking. I'm not saying there isn't anything to do, but obviously in a studio you can actually create more interesting pictures and different varied pictures.
When you say photography in studio, do you prefer it to in studio to a chosen site, and why is that?
Here, MaltiMediaHouse are very small, so unfortunately you cannot really build up sets in a studio many times. So in that case, generally it's best to work on location, so that at least you can have a different environment. But that doesn't exclude the fact that you can work in a studio as well. Sometimes you don't really need all the fancy locations.
Yes.
Depends on the shoot.
Should've known suffering. I wish I could take the pain for you. If God has a master plan that only He understands, I hope it's your eyes you see.
When you're putting a fashion shoot together, do you have a say in the choice of location, the venue, the time of day?
Right, you mean as a fashion shoot for advertising or
For
editorial?
promotion of, for example, promotion of a line of clothing.
Sometimes the company itself has the stylist and people involved in the marketing. But many times, yes, I do have a strong say in the campaign or in the way the images are going to be projected.
So you'd rather work with the whole branding exercise rather than just taking the photos?
Generally, I prefer that because in my opinion, I think you get a better product when there's like kind of one person managing the whole thing.
Controlling
that
the whole
way,
thing,
controlling the whole thing.
Well, if you're responsible for the final product, you would expect to be even there in the preparatory work. How do you link the kind of clothing that you are presented with by the supplier and the location? For example, I don't know, clothes for outdoors. Okay, for the everyday, for use in everyday. What kind of locations do you opt for?
It all depends on the branding of the company or what they actually want to project. I don't think there's actually a rule that outdoors clothes have to be in a certain way or indoors have to be in another way. It all depends on what needs to be projected. For example, recently I had a clothing line. And yes, all the images do not have any clothes in them, and they are actually selling clothes, but that's their kind of marketing strategy they opted to go for. So in that case, yes.
How did that work?
And so far it's been successful, but it's still out now, so I'm not sure.
Well,
I didn't get much feedback yet, but we got very good feedback from the photos actually.
So, can you tell us something about your work? Is it, for example, in these kind of photos, what is the subject? The clothes, the model, for example here. Is this for a portfolio of a model or to promote a line of clothes?
This was actually for an editorial, for a magazine selling the clothes with that. We're like a fashion editorial. Okay. So like there are different clothes in different shops. In this case, the magazine takes care of the styling, more or less, and then it's up to me to do the rest
with the camera,
with the camera, the models, and what there is,
and the editing. For this photo, I was down at MaltiMediaHouse taking photos in bad weather, because as I was saying before, you go to a site, not once, you go to a site a number of times, get used to the site, get to know more about it, see it in different lighting, in different weather conditions. And I was there taking photos of MaltiMediaHouse in stormy weather. In fact, you can actually see the column of rain. Exactly. And I was seeing that cloud coming up, and it was coming up quite fast. And I realized that there was a big storm coming. I thought of, okay, I think I should leave now because I've ruined my equipment in the rain. But I said, no, this can't be missed. And I took that image.
and I'm very happy I didn't miss it.
If you were to give it a name, what would it be? Besides wet. Or does it deserve
winter. I'm not very keen on giving images names, for the simple reason that when you give an image a name, you're leading the viewer onto something. I much prefer leaving the viewer think for himself or herself and try and, especially when they are abstract photos, you let the viewer see and decide what there is in the image.
What if I was good to you? What if you were good to me? What if I could hold you till I feel you move inside of me? And what if it was paradise? And what if we were symphonies? What if I gave all my...
Bahrain is a place of worship. It's a place of worship during Neolithic times. St. John's is a place of worship during our times. I still consider the two sites, the two venues, with the same attitude. You try and pick out certain details which evoke the spiritual. For example,
I particularly liked this photo of yours.
In this photo, what I really liked is the light coming in, and light and the spiritual have a very, very close connection.
Especially light from a particular source, from a window.
So I think this has a great significance, being a place of worship.
What I like about this is the element of having the altar in the foreground, having the artifact, the lamp, and then having the ceiling,
and the candle,
which
is another source of light.
Yes. You brought with you a collection of flowers. Now, you wouldn't link flowers with Maltese, with the Maltese scenery. You'd have the prickly pear, something that is more part of our agricultural heritage.
Mm-hmm.
So, what difference do you see between taking photos of, for example, citrus trees in Malta and flowers? Do you find flowers out of context with the Maltese scenery?
Not at all. I think, once again, it depends on the season. You know, I haven't actually lived here during springtime, but I've heard it's very beautiful in springtime. But you know, as you'll see in some of these images here, are actually leaves off trees and things like that. So once again, it just comes down to application. In these cases here, these are actually sun pictures, where you actually just get a plant and lay it down on a piece of paper and you let the sun expose it. So there's no actual processing in these. And that could be, you know, you could go into virtually any gardens in Malta. I'm not suggesting that you go and take all the leaves off the trees,
yeah.
but you know, once again, it's just a case of getting the light right and
yeah, I mean, these are part of Maltese scenery as well, the dandelions.
Yeah, exactly. Sunflowers, you know, there's plenty of flowers in Malta.
It's that we don't usually make the mental link with Maltese scenery.
No, but then again, you know, a lot of flowers, you can still go and purchase flowers anyway, so you don't actually necessarily have to see it growing. I mean, where do you see roses growing in Malta, for example?
In gardens.
Yeah, but you don't. It's not like you see them in fields or stuff like that. So you could, you know, purchase flowers and still photograph them.
sento bene, spengo la luce, spero di riuscire a dimostrare che così va bene. Ora che ci penso, mi perdo in quell'attimo dove dicevo che tutto era fantastico. Mi sembra ieri. E ora che è successo fa lo stesso. Se non ti cerco non vuol dire che mi hai perso. Già sto sognando, ma adesso buonanotte a te, buonanotte a me, buonanotte che ancora non ho incontrato. Buonanotte pure a lei. Lei te dove sei? Anche oggi che ti ho cercata. Buonanotte a te, buonanotte a me, buonanotte a chi ancora non ho incontrato. Buonanotte pure a lei, anche oggi che ti vorrei semplicemente. Semplicemente.
li tgħin turista taqsam it-triq mhux tad-daħ. Lanqas li tgħinu jfittex restorant. Lit-turisti għejnhom u kulħadd imur tajjeb.